What's up guys, welcome to the software engineering channel. In today's video we are going to be connecting SignalR to our Slackify project, and we are going to be leveraging on that technology to tie up our user listing feature. What this basically means is we are going to be able to see users that are online, and we are going to be able to know if users go offline because their name are going to pop out of our side menu. So how about we see a demo of what we're going to be working on. So this guy is currently online, and that's why you can obviously see his name here on the side menu. The reason why you can't see any other person is because no other person is online. So how about we had just another client? This is another client. This is my Edge browser. So I'm going to sign in. So this is currently doing Google authentication, and we are signing. So you'll notice that my signed in user, which is myself, is here, and you also notice that we have Zion Lloyd, which is this particular guy that is online, and also you notice that we have Alagbala Damilola. This is what we are going to be working on. Now also notice that once I log out or close this connection, basically my name disappeared off the side menu. All of this can be done because of SignalR connection, because of the power that SignalR possesses, and this is what we're going to be working on in this video tutorial. How about we dive right in, guys? Okay, so this was where we stopped in our last tutorial, and this is where we're going to be continuing from. So basically the first thing to do while trying to enable SignalR is to go to our startup.cs file. So let's go to our startup.cs file. Go to our startup.cs file, and so the first thing is we do a map orb. And currently we've not created our orb, so we'll just declare our URL. So your URL can basically be anything, but it must make sense. So mine is going to be chat. So I haven't done this. Let us create our orb folder. So your orb in SignalR is basically more like your central point. That's where you have most of the functionalities that your client speaks to, and that's where most of the features, the method that is being invoked on your client lives. So it's more like a central orb, as the name implies. So the name of our orb is going to be chat orb. The name of your orb can be anything, to be honest, but obviously it must make sense. It's going to be chat orb. Now you'll notice that this is just a plain C# class. What makes it powerful is by inheriting from this orb class, which is coming from SignalR. All right, that's what makes it powerful. So let's go back to our startup.cs file and do chat orb. Awesome. Now we're going to have a couple of classes. So the first is going to be our models. So now that we're going to be keeping store of our users message and our user itself, we would need some models. So we'll need our user models, and we would also need a message model. So let's create that. Now you notice that all of these properties are going to be coming from Google. Yeah, so we're going to be saving all of these properties from Google. And the reason why we are saving them is so that we can do business with these properties locally without having to go to Google all the time to fetch these properties. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, so let's create our second model. Our second model is going to be the message model. Awesome. So we need to introduce entity framework to help us get these guys into our database. So let's install entity framework. First, we're gonna need SQL Server. So we're going to need entity framework core.sql server. And we're going to be installing 5.2 version. 5.02 version install. And we're doing this because we are currently on .NET 5.0, so it's totally makes sense to install everything on that same version. So we're also going to be needing the tools. This is going to enable us to do migration from our package from our package console manager. So let's make sure to install the same version across board for consistency's sake. Okay, let's see where these errors are coming from. Okay, we'll just ignore that. Let's do a build. Sure, we are good. Okay, we are good. We'll ignore this. Can get back to it. Okay, so next thing for us to do is to set up a DB context. Since we want to get all of this into a database, we need a DB context. So let's have Slackify DB context. Okay, so it's inherit from DB context. Pull that in from entity framework core. now that we are done setting up our relationship, we need to add some type of connection string to our app settings, just so that migration can work. Right, so I can just set up like a local DB sort of. So yeah, we do connection strings. So that's it. And I'm sure you know you don't need to put this in your head, right? You can always fetch it from Google or from Microsoft's website. Okay, so that's all about our connection string. So the next thing we need to do is to go into our installers and set up our contexts in our service. So let's go into our installers. Oops, do we have installers here? No, we don't. No, we don't. Okay, so let's create a folder called installers. Did we ever use installers here? Oh, no, we don't. Okay, so we create a folder called installers, and if you want to understand the concept of installers, I would leave a link to that video. I made a video where I explained the concept of installers and how installers actually work, and how installers makes my startup.cs file absolutely clean. And that's the reason why I love to use installers, because it helps achieve that single responsibility principle. Okay, so let's make an interface for installer. It is absolutely important for you to check out the video just so to see, because I'm currently not explaining, doing many explanation, because I've done that before. So let's go this AI installer. Have default connection. Okay, so that's all about our DB installer. Do this. Okay, so now that we've created our DB installer, our startup.cs file looks very clunky and messed up, so we can split a lot of things in here. So let's create. So our DB installer ought to be outside, not inside. Okay. So let's create other installers, like our authentication installer, service installer, and Blazor installer. Let's do that real quick. So I'm going to create our auth scheme installer. So we're just simply going to copy all of this off of here. You can see that our startup.cs file is beginning to get very clean and neat. That is basically the whole essence of using installers. Okay, so we can also create a services installer. So this installer is going to be responsible for registering all of our services across the application. Okay, so we can simply take out these guys, put them here. Cool. Okay, so the next question will now be, how do we get all of this registered here? So what we would actually do is to create an extension method that is going to help us achieve that exact functionality. So we call this installer extension. Yeah, that comes to the end of our installer service. So installer extension rather. So we can go into our startup.cs file and simply say services dot now can you see how neat our startup.cs class is? Just with the one liner we can install our service and we can distribute all of our configuration file into different installers. For me, this looks pretty good guys. Okay, so now that we have our database objects set up, let's run migration so we can have all of the tables created for us in the database. Simply do add migration, initial migration, DB setup. Okay, so I think we are having an issue with okay, so this is a mistake. So this is not supposed to be from user. This is supposed to be chat to user. Chat to user. So let's save that and run our migration one more time. Okay, so we have we have our migration method created for us. We have our messages and we have our users. So let's simply do update database so we can have all of this created for us. Okay, awesome. So we have that set up already. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to save our user information. And what that means is once our user is trying to do Google authentication login, we want to extract certain information from Google and save it into our database locally. That's what we're about to achieve now. Let's dive right in. So originally I would have created a repository, followed the repository pattern, but I ain't gonna do that. I'm just going to create my services and I will slap my DB context into my services. So just for the sake of time, basically, but originally I would have created a repository, and the reason for the repository is so that if you want to change your database provider in the nearest future, the only thing you need to change is your repository. You don't need to work on any other part of your application. So that's basically the essence for repositories. But for now, since this is just a test project, for the want of time, we're going to be using the fast routes. Okay. So let's create our interface. Okay, so that's user service contract. So let's implement our user service. Awesome. So let's fill this in quickly. And we return user in DB. Awesome. And we're going to do almost the same thing for get user by email. So we're just going to do a copy and paste. Instead of ID, this is going to be email, and of course to bring in our sync method. Okay, we'll just leave this for now till when we need that. Okay, so that's awesome. What we need to do now is to register our users. So we need to fix in this method into our controller. So let's get into our controllers. We'll have to work on a few things. So basically what we need now is we need some kind of callback to happen. Because we weren't doing anything previously, we could allow our controller to get redirected to the home page. But now that we need to register our user concurrently, meaning immediately Google authentication is done, we need to then register our user into our database. We would need some kind of callback. So we're going to be doing a revamp on this method. So what we're going to do this time is basically simple. We do an HTTP GET. We're going to be creating a login callback. Function. So yeah, we're going to save our results. Yeah, with HTTP context. Authenticate async. Yeah, we're going to be using cookie authentication defaults. Scheme. So we can extract the user's email from here, get into the principals, do find first, using the claim types to email, and we can extract the value. Okay, awesome. So now we can, okay, so let us use dependency injection to bring in our user service. Awesome. So now that we have our user service brought in via user dependency injection, we can, the first thing we want to check obviously is if the user actually exists in the database. We don't want to register the user if the user already exists. So this dot user service. So we're going to try to get the user by email. So if user is null, that's when we want to have this registration happen, right? We do not want to register the user when the user is registered already. Okay, so we are going to contract this job of saving user details. I'm going to do that here. This is going to take authenticate results. Basically, when we are done, we are basically going to return a redirect. And this is somewhat tricky. It took me a while to get this particular part, but what you're going to do is actually add your URL, and to make this more optimized, you can use your context to actually dynamically get your URL, just to make this optimized, but I'm allowed to do this for now. Okay, so let's create this method, generate this method. Okay, so we're going to be extracting all of the user information that is needed to be saved in the database from our authenticate results. So we're going to do principal first, find first, claims type, it's email, value, string, username. We're going to be doing the same thing, so we can as well just copy it. But this is going to be for name. String, picture. This is somewhat different, so yeah, we're going to just go into our user. Since we already have this registered, so if you check our installer and authentication scheme, so you'll notice that we already added this to our claim, so we can always fetch it from the user itself. Let's bring in link. So just a side note here, originally all of this should not find its way into your controller, right? So all of these are logic already, right? So what you want to do is to create a service that takes in all of this logic. Do you understand what I'm saying? Although one of the challenge that you might begin to face quickly is getting certain class. It's difficult to get certain class like HTTP context and service, because that is glued to your controller base. But what can be done is you can easily fetch out all of these functionalities and pass them down into your service, and you can also pass your HTTP context into your service as well, so you can have access to HTTP context objects and do all of these things. So for a real life project, you want to keep all of this in your service. You want to keep your controller very slim. Function of your controller should be receiving requests and responding to requests, and that's all. That's it. You don't need to do any other thing within your controller. Even when it comes to validation, you should have a separate file for validation. You can use Fluent validation. That gives you a good control on validation. So just a quick side note that you should, very important, take note of. And who knows, maybe after all of this, I'm going to do a refactoring of all of this so you can see what the refactored project looks like, and that's the way your project should look. We don't support bad code here. Okay, so let's get claim.name. Okay, we already have name already, so we might not need this. Okay, so we're going to be creating new user. It's just when you're trying to validate or test out a functionality, you don't need refactoring at that point. You just need to see that it works, right? So when you are sure that it works, then you can start to refactor, which is what we're actually going to do after all of this. So we have picture and we have date joint to be date time. Now. Okay, so yeah, so let's go back to our login method. So we do await HTTP context dot send out a challenge sync. Challenge is going to be Google default authentication scheme and new authentication property. And here we are redirecting to a URI. Redirecting to a URI.action. It's going to be a name of and callback action. Okay, awesome. Let's get this in. So this ought to be URL rather. Okay, so yeah, so let's see how this works, guys. Let's just add a breakpoint to this and add a breakpoint to this, and let's do a clean first, clean our solution. And let's do a build. Okay, so we would have to log out first to be able to see that functionality work. Okay, I always have this issue, guys, and basically it's forgetting to register my service. Okay, so what we want to do is to register our service. Let's add scope. User service. Okay, and also okay, that should solve the problem. Let's do a save again. Okay, let's try the logout again. Okay, so let's log in. Okay, so you can see that it's sending out the challenge now. So let's have the challenge sent out. Okay, so it has successfully sent out the challenge. So let's select this account. Now you can see that the callback has been called. You will notice that because this user does not exist in our database, it's just going to check our database to see if this user exists. Because this user came back null, it doesn't exist, it will now have to go into our save user method. So let's see how that works. So the first thing it tries to do is to get the email. So you can see our email, zionlloyd05@gmail.com. it gets our username, it gets our picture, extract our picture, Zion Lloyd username, and extract our picture, and it saves that into the database. Now, having done that, it redirects us to, you can see that. Now, if we check our database, we should be able to see that user account saved in our database. Let's confirm that. Should be able to see that saved in our database. Awesome, guys. So you can see the user is saved in our database already, and now we have this. Okay, guys, so this is 1 hour already. I don't want the video to be much longer than this, so we're going to be breaking this particular module into sections. So now that we've sorted out saving our user information in database, we've created our context, we've created our model. The next thing we're going to be working on is to actually get into connecting SignalR, working on our connection manager and tying up SignalR with our front end, such that we have our user listed on these points. We can get to see connected users and disconnected users. That's going to be the part 2 of this same video. So we're going to be ending that on this note. Do well to subscribe to this channel. It's a software engineering channel. We do all things software engineering, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. See you on the next one, guys. Bye bye.